Welcome to PoetsSpeak 2020. My name is Kathleen Ellis, and I'm a poet, and I've been coordinating PoetsSpeak, a celebration of National Poetry Month for the past 17 years at the Bangor Public Library in Bangor, Maine. Every April, more than 25 well-known and emerging poets, University of Maine student poets, community poets, and jazz musicians join together for this popular event. This year, our 18th gathering has moved from a live event in the library to a virtual celebration, and we hope you enjoy the poets who would have been reading in early April at the library. I'd like to thank the library for hosting PoetsSpeak for these 18 years and express the poetry community's gratitude to past library director Barbara McDade for initiating this project, and to the current library director Ben Treat, and also especially to Candace Joyce, who is reference librarian and adult program coordinator, for all of their support. So again, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the reading. I'm really excited to share a couple of poems with you from my latest collection called Outer Body Travel. And it seemed very fitting to choose a couple of poems that have to do with space in celebration of Jessica Meir, the astronaut who recently returned from the International Space Station and who happens to be a Maine native. And she was there for 6 months, something that I would have loved to do in a former life. But in this life, I'm a poet, so I will read these two poems with her in the back of my mind. The first one is called Blue Marble, and it's after a photo from Apollo 17, the last manned lunar mission, 1972. Out there, astronauts reach out to fondle you. In this pulling away from Earth, what we expect is the unexpected. Irrational lives on a spreadsheet, orbiting the chest, where we cross our hearts and hope to live another day, a month, a year, or 80. Whatever we said, we didn't mean it. Our intentions go beyond the object of desire, that blue marble we see as ours. Excuses, excuses. Alibis stand on their own recognizance. The more distant the object, the bluer it seems, so said Leonardo. A short line of sight through air seems transparent, like glass, like us. It is easy to see the large island off the coast of Africa. How did it get that strange name? How do we know anything? Think how this would lead to thinking about the heart's own smart camera, as if changing focus could resurrect the old stories, how gazing at the moon could save the world, that there are objects called marbles is a fact. And the second poem I'd like to share is the last poem in the book, and it is called Heliopause, which is an actual scientific term. Heliopause. In this place where the wind from the sun gives way to the wind from the stars, the earth waits for its guests to return to her, to lie on her sandy beaches, to summit her peaks, to speak her 6,900 languages, to master just one, to make up for lost time, to beg the question, to accept the kindness of strangers, recalling the few times you have paused before you leaped through air, knowing whatever boundaries you push, you are drawn back to the breath you live in. Thank you.
Greetings. This is Ellen Sander coming to you from Isolation Station in Belfast, Maine in April of 2020. I'm going to read you my poem called Abad 4x4, which was published in issue number 10 of The Mantle, an online poetry journal that I particularly admire. The rain is lost through fractures in the pavement, and the horizon bulges with irrevocable distance. I come out of a dark room with the latency of a swampy dream, of a confined space, of a dirty, empty cup, a dim begin of day with kettle-eyed, filmy sweat. I pretend not to notice the cat lick the yogurt while I retrieve the toast and eat it anyway. You have my word, and I want it back. Hello, this is Ellen Sander coming to you from the Quarantine Canteen in Belfast, Maine, with my poem, Ode to Joy. In the midst of a pause in the wind-driven rain, on a morning hard to wake up to, the ongoing overwhelm of what these days bring, on the walk with the dogs on a road lined with wet humps of snow, dying like so many sick innocents caught in the web, a bit puff of fog that ambles along in a world of its own, like a carefree wisp that dissolves at the edges of joy in an otherwise pitiful spring. With thanks to the Bangor Public Library and Kathleen Ellis for so many years of PoetsSpeak, this is Ellen Sanders signing off. See you soon.
Hi, my name is Richard Hoke, and I'm a poet living in Westbrook, Maine, and I'd just like to say thank you to the Bangor Public Library for inviting me to do this reading. Else. I like pairs of colors because I find irony soothing. Did you know the founder of Victoria's Secret jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge? He did it after he sold the brand and it ballooned to however many $billion. Because, oh, what could have been? Or it could have been. Because it was never meant to be. Him, not a failure, just a man never to have, only to have been. I wanted to have been a classic Bay Area foggy day when it happened, because pink is my second favorite color, and Victoria's Secret pinks are as fine as any, on bags as jarring over-the-shoulder billboards and alternating tones of delightfully seductive and devastatingly seductive. Especially so, because when the pink is lifted, the back is that dense, wet gray, my favorite of all shades. And perhaps that's why I thought of pink falling in alternatives while stopped in my car at the intersection of Forest Avenue and Marginal Way. My heater, so blissful in January, with every delineated implication of traffic enervating my still cabin. I look closely now to see another young man, a red-headed French impression marooned on a street median, rendered desperately sensitive. The dry gray day drawing out the resin of the resolved. The air so absent that the yearning had surpassed warming his eyes and cheeks and had begun to flush into its own moment of hot tears, moaning as they flashed. He surrendered himself to weep without consequence, only loss. But today, because there are yellow and white lines on the road, I am to drive on across the bridge.
Life moves on no matter the loss or the challenges. And in these times, I am moved to read poems about intimates who have left. This poem was written to Ashley Bryan's brilliant Ashley, who's still with us, Ashley Bryan's found object puppet, Sirwa, which moved me to write about my love. It was part of Artword at the Portland Museum of Art last year. You Did Good by Annalise Giacomides. I hadn't known an escort would be needed, but there you were, my precious story of mismatched earrings and cataracted gems, ushering him across the sea, moat, smoke, nothing, everything, shaking off the last seeds of fear he clung to. Sweet cousin, sister, mother, child, whoever, thank you for coming in your shredded roses, fermented life bleeding into the torn fabric. String and wire and mesh, music sounding him home. Grackles cluster out of sight, new summer and the dirt smells of mint and turmeric. Roses explode, fog lifts, a hungry catfish bursts the water, a dirge, a barn, around the divine bend, and all that dancing. He says you did good, wants you to know he has recommended you. Here, sit just this once and let me wash your feet. Adventurous by Annalise Jachimides. Drink up, I tell you, it's only my mum. A cup of real woman, dead 6 years, cremated at McCool's on Center Street. Most of her, they tell me, filtered out through the stack, sucked into the clouds, blown high over goldenrod-stained fields, drizzled into the West Branch of the Penobscot. I might have scooped her into my palms this morning, my tongue scrolling the water from Fish Hatchery Brook. She tastes whole, robust, not fleshly weak, like she seemed at the kitchen table, rifling romance from the page. She flows from the tap or the sky or a cold pocket of winter. Perhaps she's pulled in a cracked skull in Rwanda, my mum, the adventuress. For sure not the woman of polyester pantsuits and sneakers, fearful of the sound of her own thoughts. Sometimes I hold this mother as water in my mouth, bumping against my mercury-filled teeth, before I squirt her out between the overbite that was hers before the false teeth and is mine still. I watch her fly up into the light prism droplets and laugh at her grace, her tricks. She's a wild one now, this mother. My mum is ocean and wave, hurricane and mist, road slush and the tar-crusted rivulet creeping down my living room wall. She weeps into the weather, bleeds living roots. She heals, drowns, baptizes. She slakes and quenches. She boogies with Che and Martin Luther and Jackie O. My mum is a dragon of light in the water.
Happy National Poetry Month. My name is Gary Rainford. I'm a poet and I live out on Swans Island, about 6 miles off the northeast coast of Maine. Thank you, Bangor Public Library, for asking me to read a few poems. Of course, as you can see, I'm wearing my poetry t-shirt. I have poems, and I'm going to jump right in with a tribute piece. This is called Through the Years. Country Music Hall of Famer Kenneth Rogers, as he was originally billed, announced retirement plans on the Today Show. "I've done this long enough," says the 78-year-old icon, getting ready for his final world tour after 5 marriages and 6 children. "You've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run." He smiles, warm as a straight flush, daydreaming about spending more time with his twin boys and wife. Sometimes there's a fine line between being driven and being selfish. Kenneth pokers a Texas smile. I'm going to read a poem from my first book about my daughter. Something about my daughter. No matter what, she can be happy. She can be in the foulest mood. No matter what, she just brings me happiness and a smile to my face. She doesn't have to do a thing. Nobody else does that. Miss Shrew. It's a cold, chill morning in May. I follow Miri, whirling and speechless, to a nook underneath the staircase. Trapped inside a jar, a velvety shrew, smaller than my big toe, is dying, but holding to life like petals of roses to a cut stem. When I palm the jar, tiny shrew feet struggle, then fall. And when she lifts her shrew head, red eyes blink half moons like sickles. Miri feels so terrible, we let Miss Shrew go loose in the yard, way out back by the honeysuckle vines, where Mice and other shrews seem to like the hotel of tall grasses. I want Miss Shrew to live, see another sunrise. Mary points at the sky. Go, Shrew, go, Shrew, go! I get down on my knees and elbows, praying for a twitch of hope. But she hardly moves. I'm going to read another poem from my first book, Salty Liquor. First, I'd like to say I think that poems are like people. They have identity. Some people make us feel really good. Other people, sometimes the best thing to do is to stay as far away from them as possible. And other poems and people, they bring us peace. I woke up this morning, it was snowing out. There was snow dusted on the ground. I know my neighbors to the south and east of me got a few inches, and I just felt like I needed peace this morning, so I have a poem for that. No rest for the weary. Steady, pre-dawn rain, gentle as a guru's mantra. You hear the sweetest voices landing on the blue tarps you wrestled with in the wind yesterday to cover a truckload of studs and the pine boards piled across the mud-splattered driveway. You stay in bed this morning to listen, to remember how perfectly the sound of rain lifts your spirit, drives out confusion. A meditation. Every raindrop, the puddles that have no place to drain. This morning I woke up, it was early, and a Facebook friend had posted that during last night's wind and snowstorm, how a tree had fallen over in the driveway and a few in the street, in the road, and evidently across and on top of her neighbor's SUV. And that post made me think of last week during a wind and rainstorm that ran through the island. Roof shingles were ripped off my house, and the next day I was up on the roof in the wind and rain nailing down roof shingles, and that made me think of Ella Fitzgerald. Blue skies. Summertime. Ella Fitzgerald, eyes closed and sweat running down her cheeks, jazzes every syllable into a thin line of horn-like phrasing which conveys a lifetime. Her mother's fatal car accident, her stepfather's lewd, felonious hands, the colored orphan asylum in Riverdale, New York, winning amateur night at the Apollo Theater, the Decca years with Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong, Bebop, a Grammy-winning Mac the Knife performance, congestive heart failure, both legs amputated, diabetes, her final days wheelchaired in the backyard of her Beverly Hills mansion, and her granddaughter. I just want to smell the air and listen to the birds and hear Alice laugh. She tells her son, a soft smile on her face. Fish jumping, the cotton high, and where the living is easy. I'm going to finish my Bangor Public Library poetry set with two poems from my most recent project. The manuscript is called Adrift. It's a verse novel that tells the story of my mother's dementia and Alzheimer's disease. My mother's name is Barbara. In high school, however, her friends referred to her as Bobby. These poems refer to my mother as Bobby as well. Doppelganger. Kina skates to our table. Digital camera dangling on a lanyard from her wrist. Want me to take your picture? Bobby says no, shaking her head, dips a pinch of steaming yeast bun in a bowl of applesauce, stirs the flecks of cinnamon, takes a bite, then purrs. But I say, absolutely, and drag my chair closer and press my face to Bobby's, wrapping an arm around her neck. Say, memory care. I joke before Keena asks us to say cheese. And Bobby is already reaching like a toddler reaches to see herself in the nano world of her own self-image. Darling, you look marvelous. I wisecrack in my best Billy Crystal Fernando accent, and Bobby replies, pointing at the man sitting next to her in the picture, his face pressed to hers, arms wrapped around her neck. That's your son, isn't it? I'm going to finish with this last piece. It's called Bob Dylan Cover. Resident Assistant Jean wheelchairs an old woman into the common area, where it's standing room only for Drake, the one-man show who plays guitar, harmonica, and sings once a month, making rounds at all the assisted living facilities in northern Maine. When Jean sets the wheelchair brake and kisses the old woman's cheek as easily as kissing her own daughter, tears fill my eyes. Drake singing, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, yes it is, says Bobby, conducting the band with her fingers. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth. I work at the Bangor Public Library in local history and special collections, and today I'm reading a poem from the collective lyrics of Edna St. Vincent Millay. The poem is titled, The Spring and the Fall. In the spring of the year, in the spring of the year, I walked the road beside my dear. The trees were black where the bark was wet. I see them yet in the spring of the year. He broke me a branch of the blossoming peach that was out of the way and hard to reach. In the fall of the year, in the fall of the year, I walked the road beside my dear. The rooks went up with a raucous trill. I hear them still in the fall of the year. He laughed at all I dared to praise and broke my heart in little ways. Year be springing or year be falling, the bark will drip and the birds be calling. There's much that's fine to see and hear, in the spring of a year, in the fall of a year. 'Tis not love's going hurts my days, but that it went in little ways. Today I'm going to read two poems by Robert Frost. The first is titled Mending Wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls, we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are, until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There, where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone, grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. The road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the time passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no strep had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Outside the Aviary. 1. The condor, behind steel bars, wings so vast I could wrap myself in them, mountain beak, red-eyed, eating roots as people pass. I show her my silver keys, say now you're soaring in the canyons. You're beautiful, I say, and run, pointing my heart like the sun. We become metallic forest and city streets, ancient clarity amidst industry, wanting no possessions, just ocean light breaking through prison bars. 2. The prairie hawk. I praise her, tell her she soothes me with her wild song, eternal face, benevolent knowing. You'll be eating in the berries again, I say, in bunchgrass seeds. Northern valleys will cherish you, mother, daughter, lover. For now you help us listen to our breath, remind us of all we have been. Primitive bloom, silk grass veins, spruce tipped skin, grateful, accepting soil's gifts. I took off my mask amidst the augers and machinery. I went swimming in turquoise glow, became expansive in communion with you, who showed me how to give. You leaned against the rail above vast ocean depths, your face tinted blue, the bay shining around you, looking back at me, your smile luminescent, disarmed the drones, the touch of your hands cleansed the breakers, glistening streams mirrored my own euphoria of being loved through your love.
Hi. I'd like to read you a poem that I wrote fairly recently called For Now. I've always wanted my kids to be the kind of kids who wake up on Saturday mornings, galvanized, bounding, flinging themselves under the lustrous fields of the sky. Those kids would build a fort in the camber of the blowdowns. They'd hear the sweet whistle of the perching warblers. They'd watch the hawk as it curves in for a landing, having just flown through the gathering of dawn, bringing an offering. We place fancy jewels out there, deluxe swing set, oversized trampoline, paved basketball court, activities deferred until later in the day when the sun has reached a firmer position in the sky. They miss out on the subtle hues of early morning. They miss out on the textured shadows of this liminal stretch of day. Do they miss out on new and nascent thoughts too? Thoughts that could only transpire within the germinal pitch of sunlight? Thoughts that only arrive with the stillness and sharpness of a morning? Thoughts gently brushed by breezes from sunrise, rustled by the hint of murmur in the trees, carried with the pine-scented offering of the hawk. Those early morning thoughts. The world of the hawk and the warbler, left still and untouched as the video games went out. The cartoonish violence, the lands of purple-banded skies and blue mountains. My kids, sprinting through marshes, gliding across mountains. I want them trudging, not sprinting, through the marshland. I want the muck, suctioning their boots, pulling them into the earth. I want them watching the rove beetles cling to the fluttering cattails. I want the hawk reminding them how deep is the sky. But outside is not where childhood friendships are played out. Not now, not in this season of quarantine. I hear my son chuckle with his friend who's playing the video game from his own living room. All right, let's go. Nice, nice, nice. I got your back. There's laughter in his voice. They're embedded in each other's morning. How he adores this artificial world he shares with his very real friend. But what of the warbler and the hawk?
Hi, so this is a poem by Sarah Kay, and it's called If I Should Have a Daughter. If I should have a daughter, instead of Mom, she's gonna call me Point B, because that way she knows that no matter what happens, at least she can find her way to me. And I'm gonna paint the solar system on the backs of her hands. So she has to learn the entire universe before she can say, oh, I know that like the back of my hand. And she's gonna learn that this life will hit you hard in the face, wait for you to get back up just so it can kick you in the stomach. But getting the wind knocked out of you is the only way to remind your lungs how much they like the taste of air. There is hurt here that won't be fixed by band-aids or poetry, so the minute she realizes that Wonder Woman isn't coming, I'll make sure she knows that she doesn't have to wear the cape all by herself, because no matter how wide you stretch your fingers, your hands will always be too small to catch all the pain you want to heal. Believe me, I've tried. And baby, I'll tell her, don't keep your nose up in the air like that. I know that trick. I've done it 1,000,000 times. You're just smelling for smoke. So you can follow the trail back to a burning house, to the boy who lost everything in the fire, to see if you could save him. Or else, find the boy who lit the fire in the first place, to see if you can change him. But I know she will anyway, so instead, I'll always keep an extra supply of chocolate and rain boots nearby, because there is no heartbreak that chocolate can't fix. Okay, well, there's a few heartbreaks that chocolate can't fix, but that's what the rain boots are for, because rain will wash away everything if you let it. I want her to look at the world through the underside of a glass-bottom boat, to look through a microscope at the galaxies that exist on the pinpoint of a human mind, because that's the way my mom taught me. There'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, my mama said, when you open your hands and try to catch and wind up with only blisters and bruises. When you step out of the phone booth and try to fly, and the very people you want to save are the ones standing on your cape. When your boots will fill with rain and you are up to your knees in disappointment, but those are the days when you have all the more reason to say thank you, because there's nothing more beautiful than the way the ocean refuses to stop kissing the shoreline, no matter how many times it's swept away. You, with the wind, and win some. Lose some, you will put the star in starting over and over, and no matter how many landmines erupt in a minute, be sure your mind lands on the beauty of this funny place called life. And yeah, on a scale from 1 to over-trusting, I'm really damn naive. But I want her to know that this world is made out of sugar. It can crumble so easily, but don't be afraid to stick your tongue out and taste it. Baby, I'll tell her, remember your mama is a warrior and your papa is a warrior, and you are the girl with small hands and big eyes who never stops asking for more. Remember that good things come in threes, and so do bad things. And always apologize if you've done something wrong, but never apologize for the way your eyes refuse to stop shining. Your voice may be small, but don't you ever stop singing. And when they finally hand you heartache, when they slip war and hatred under your door, when they offer you handouts on street corners of cynicism and defeat, you tell them that they really ought to meet your mother. Hi, so this is a poem that I wrote that's inspired by a poem by Olivia Gatwood, and this one is called We Are All Immigrants. When I say we are all immigrants, I mean we are all transitioning from what we know to what we have yet to know. This includes the undergrads in their first college lecture, immigrants, ears so young for this new language, their shaking hearts, unsure if this is where they are meant to be, and the long-haul truckers, ash-stained driver's seats, yes, they are also immigrants. Those transcontinental road trips through more unfamiliar cities than familiar ones, like transatlantic lifeboats through angry waters and angrier cities, all just looking for a place called home. I can't forget to mention the tides, for they are immigrants too, with their unsettled foundations, always asking where their roots have been. Something calls them to move that way that they do, like wherever they've been can't host them any longer, but they keep coming. And oh, the butterflies and the snakes, how they shed their past to feel the sun again in a new land. And the sun knows its fair share of border crossing, its stubborn radiance hopping boundaries like hopscotch into this house, into this room, into this skin. By nature, it always moves in one direction without looking back. By the time today is over, it will have assimilated to the center of the earth. And where could the planets have learned to fall forever, move with such ferocious ambition, graceful and expanding? Where would our teachers have learned to step into a new generation of work every day? Every year, they wade waist-deep into young fashion and tortured eyebrows on worry-written faces. They are immigrants in a sea of unsure immigrants, like transatlantic lifeboats. How they are in an abundance of hope for this new future, because they have to be, because there is so much there. We've all tasted unwelcome and stayed anyway. I mean, we are always unsure of where we are meant to be. We've all clawed our ways to somewhere we've never seen before just to taste the thought of opportunity. We've all taught ourselves resilience. We've all heard the snap of bootstraps. We've all felt the sting on our ankles. I mean, no matter what language you speak, I love you sounds the same from inside the womb. Of course, newborns are immigrants too, leaving their family homes to seek new opportunity, their own language morphing into the new. And then there are the immigrants, the real immigrants, the English pieced together on napkins, Rubik's Cube of tongues, immigrants, the flavor of home always caught in their teeth. They float down the grocery store aisle, shopping cart digging new lines in their hands. This new world always wants to print its mark on these people. But they've learned to just keep walking. Just keep walking. Our truest, most raw, most exposed professors. Let them teach us their recipes and sew us with their color palettes. Let their walk, let their tongues, let their hands remind us of everything we have to be hopeful for. How we have so much more we have yet to know.
Dreams Upon Waking by Mark Milnikov. Suppose suffering were not universal and could be forgotten, and we did not need garments to hide it, so that the senses were not hijacked by habit. The secrets of life did not forsake us, and we were never betrayed by love. The tracks we left on our journey to wisdom would not erode in the wind. Waves would not lose their shape, and water would resist toxins and not surrender its purity. And so we might arrive as though we had been made to be whole. The gist of body-mind, not compromised.
Hello everyone, my name is Bria, and this first poem is called Triangle Roots. You form and melt to my body like a clump of hot ash. It hurts me to feel you on me, but I can't ever rub you off. You are where I come from. Where I come from has encased me in a second skin, you, that I didn't choose to wear. It wraps around me like a sign that forms a full-bodied mask, with tufts of wiry curls and a Philly accent, and a blue-eyed city face that people only see when they learn where I come from. And this second poem is called Ode to You / Finding My Place. You turn the most sour taste in my mouth to a sweet candy that drips off my tongue. Sugar that exudes from my lips in a sweet symphony of cacophonous confection. My lazy legs drape across yours on the couch in your too small apartment. Legs that belong sunken into the sweet of your body. Legs that are meant to be touched and caressed by a person who turns my sour to sugar. Your body keeps a secret of the sticky saccharides it holds, and this power is exerted in waves that wash over the shores of the shell of a person I had been. Before a man with candied substance showed me it was okay to be comfortable on his couch, to drape those legs over his. to let that sour taste melt into a forgotten memory of bitterness, and allow the sugary candy to play on the buds of my tongue as my laugh gives me that Jolly Rancher taste. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Francois Amar. I'm happy to share a few poems with you for this great event with the library. This first poem is actually one that I wrote along with Kathleen Ellis for an event that was held at the library maybe 4 or 5 years ago, actually probably a bit more, for a 350.org event. And since it's Earth Week, I thought I'd share this one with you. It's called When Everybody Knows. When everybody in the world knows the temperature is rising 3 degrees centigrade in this century, people will be amazed at the leaves unfolding and the early birds arriving out of season. When everybody knows the Florida real estate bubble is burst forever and the Maldives have succumbed to the new Atlantis, people will draw new maps and take up boating. When everybody knows the upward shifting in ranges of plants and animals and the rivers rising, people will remember how lean and hungry, how alive we once were. When everybody knows the polar bears no longer endanger them, people will find new entries in Borges' encyclopedia and laugh, amazed. Thank you. This next poem reflects what a lot of us are doing these days while we're home, and that is to say baking. This poem is called Bread of Nations. 1. The first miracle of the loaf is that we learned to make it at all, starting desperately with a handful of seeds crushed and softened in water to feed the toothless one for another season. No Neolithic purity law governed the invention of this gruel. What an unappetizing name, I blame Dickens. Perhaps you prefer atoll, kush, congee, grits, polenta, porridge. Give me cream of wheat with maple syrup and a sprinkle of wheat germ. 2. Waster! You spilled some. Quick! Scrape it from the rock by the fire. Oh. Drip a little on the comal, spoon it, spread it, scrape it up. Tortilla, roti, lavash, wrap, roll, tear, fingers only. Matzah, the original hiking food, good for when you're on the run. 3. The second miracle, raising the bread. Injera, pita, naan. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, bubble on friend, bubble on. Focaccia, falouche, fugasse, filled and folded, the baker's snitch. Challah, ciabatta, crumpet, take two at tea time. Sourdough, trained to resist rhizopus and penicillium. Karen's whole wheat seed loaf, the antidote to wonder. What a marvel. Babka, bagel, baguette, beer bread. Oh, doubly blessed. Thank you. And here are two poems, again about food. These are about plums. First, the very famous poem by William Carlos Williams. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. And the second poem is The Word Plum by Helen Chasen. The word plum is delicious, pout and plush, luxury of self-love and savoring murmur, full in the mouth and falling like fruit, taut skin, pierced, bitten, provoked into juice, and tart flesh, question and reply, lip and tongue of pleasure. Thank you. And this last poem is one of my stanzas from a collaborative poem with Kathleen Ellis and Cheryl Daigle. It's called Near Misses 2. The law of attraction leads to bound and unbound, binding and splitting. Which section of the cone, which soundless fleeting cut will leave us most alone? You at one focus, while I spiral in like space junk, trading airless distance for 10,000 collisions at the grazing heat of your gaze. Thank you, and stay safe, everyone. Looking forward to your poems.